Hi, I'm Anna. This all began during a joyous occasion, Mark's 30th birthday party, where we announced our pregnancy. The setting was perfect, our backyard filled with family and friends. However, not everyone was happy. Kayla, my sister-in-law, has been a challenging presence since I married Mark. At our wedding, she wore a bridal-like dress and caused scenes. Despite these red flags, I've tried to be understanding, especially knowing the difficulties she's been through, like her recent miscarriage. As we were cutting the cake, Kayla came up to me with a plate of food, smiling but with a strange look in her eyes. "Anna, you must try this. I made it especially for you," she insisted. I was cautious due to my severe peanut allergy, but she reassured me, "Don't worry, I remembered your allergy." Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I decided to trust her. "Thank you, Kayla. It looks delicious," I responded, trying to keep the atmosphere light. A few minutes later, while mingling with guests and holding the plate Kayla gave me, my best friend Liz noticed my hesitation. "What's wrong, Anna? You look like you're solving a mystery." I laughed it off. "Just being overly cautious. Kayla made this for me, and you know my history with allergies." Liz raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, and given her history, I'd say keep that egg pie pen handy. Why not have someone else try it, just to be safe?" The suggestion seemed reasonable, so I discreetly passed the plate to Ryan, a family friend who had just arrived and hadn't heard the earlier conversation. "Hey Ryan, try this out. Kayla outdid herself with the cooking today," I said, watching closely as he took a bite. His reaction was immediate praise. "This is really good. What is it supposed to be?" Just as I began to relax, thinking my suspicions were unfounded, Ryan's face turned pale. He clutched his throat, gasping for air. Panic ensued as everyone rushed to his side, and I screamed for someone to call 911. As Mark and I accompanied Ryan to the hospital, my mind raced. Was it a mistake or something more sinister? Kayla's earlier assurance echoed in my ears, a chilling reminder that her intentions might not have been as kind as I had hoped. Back at the party, as the ambulance drove away, Kayla approached me with fake concern. "Anna, what happened? Is Ryan okay?" Her words felt hollow. "He had a severe allergic reaction, Kayla, but he doesn't have allergies." "What exactly was in that dish?" She stuttered, her facade cracking. I just followed a new recipe. I thought it would be fine. I'm so sorry, Anna." The night ended with more questions than celebrations, and the joy of our announcement was overshadowed by worry for Ryan's health and unsettling doubts about Kayla's true intentions. As I lay in bed that night, the excitement of our pregnancy was marred by a growing sense of dread, wondering if the family I married into was as welcoming as I once believed. "Is Ryan going to be okay?" I pressed Kayla as we stood in the stark white hallway of the hospital. The antiseptic smell strong in the air. "He's stable now. Thank goodness," she replied. "But Anna, I swear I didn't know about the peanuts." Kayla's voice quivered, her eyes darting away as she spoke. I crossed my arms, feeling the weight of her gaze. "How can you not know, Kayla? You told me you made it especially for me. You know about my allergy." Mark stepped in, his voice firm yet weary. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We need to think this through rationally. Kayla, just be honest. Did you put peanuts in the dish?" "No, I would never." She looked between us, desperation creeping into her tone. "You have to believe me. I thought I was helping." Helping? The idea seemed far-fetched. I needed to understand more. Helping by putting me in the hospital? "No, it was a mistake. A terrible mistake," Kayla stammered, but her words felt hollow. Back home, Mark and I sat in the living room, the echoes of the day's chaos still lingering. "We need to get to the bottom of this. Something doesn't add up," I said, reaching for my laptop. Mark nodded. "I agree. Let's check the security footage. Maybe we missed something at the party." The digital clock ticked loudly as we reviewed the footage, the screen casting a blue glow in the dim room. Then there it was, Kayla in the kitchen, her back to the camera, clearly separating a portion of food and adding something from a small bottle. "There, did you see that?" I paused the video, pointing at the screen. Mark's face hardened as he replayed the clip. "That looks like a bottle of peanut oil. Why would she have that?" Feeling the ground shift beneath me, I fought back the anger rising in my throat. "She lied to us, Mark. She knew what she was doing. We need to confront her with this evidence." The next day, we invited Kayla over under the pretense of clearing the air. As she sat down, visibly nervous, I pushed the laptop towards her. "Explain this, Kayla. We saw you on the footage." Her face drained of color as the video played. The room fell silent, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator in the background. I was just trying to make it taste better. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt," Kayla whispered, her voice barely audible. "By using peanut oil, knowing Anna's allergy?" Mark's voice rose, a mix of disbelief and anger. "You put my wife and our unborn child at risk. How can you say you didn't mean it?" "I was jealous, okay. I thought if Anna got a little sick, maybe the attention would be back on me for once. But I didn't want to hurt anyone seriously," she confessed, her words spilling out messy and raw. The betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined. "Jealousy isn't a mistake, Kayla. It's a choice. You chose to act on it in the worst possible way." As she sobbed, apologizing profusely, I realized that some lines, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. Our relationship, whatever was left of it, had been irreparably damaged by her actions. Mark stood up, his decision clear. "You need to leave, Kayla. We need to think about what comes next." As the door closed behind her, the finality of the moment settled around us. The trust was broken, and the road ahead was uncertain. But one thing was clear. We had to protect our family no matter what. "After everything, you still called the cops on your own sister-in-law." Mark's mother, Evelyn, confronted us in our living room, her voice thick with disbelief. "We had to, Mom. What Kayla did was not just wrong, it was criminal. She could have killed Anna and our baby," Mark replied, his voice firm yet filled with sorrow. "But she's your sister. Couldn't this have been handled within the family?" Evelyn persisted, her eyes searching ours for some sign of leniency. "Handling it within the family doesn't change what she did. We can't just sweep it under the rug," I said, unable to believe we had to justify our actions. The doorbell rang, slicing through the tense air. It was Detective Simmons, the officer handling our case. He stepped in, nodding politely. "Good afternoon. I have some updates on the investigation." Evelyn excused herself, the atmosphere too much for her, leaving Mark and me with Detective Simmons. "We've reviewed all the evidence, including the security footage and testimonies from the party guests. It's clear that Kayla acted with premeditation. We're proceeding with charges of attempted poisoning," he explained, his tone professional but empathetic. "What happens next?" Mark asked, his hands clenched in his lap. "Kayla will be arraigned soon. She'll have a chance to enter a plea, and then the case will likely go to trial unless she opts for a plea deal." Detective Simmons detailed the process. As he left, Mark and I sat in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. We had made the difficult decision to protect our family, but the fallout was tearing everyone apart. The next few days were a blur of legal consultations and family arguments. Kayla's husband, Jason, came over one evening, his expression one of defeated confusion. I can't understand it. How could she do something like this?" "Jason, I'm so sorry. This is hard on all of us," I offered, feeling his pain. The man was losing his wife to her own destructive actions. "She said she was feeling overshadowed by your pregnancy, that it made her do crazy things," Jason continued, trying to find some reason in the madness. "It's no excuse for trying to harm someone," Mark interjected, his voice steady but his eyes sad. "Yeah, I know. What do I even tell our kids? How do I explain that their mom did something like this?" Jason's voice broke, the reality of his situation settling in. "You tell them the truth, that sometimes people make very bad choices and there are consequences," I suggested gently, knowing how tough the road ahead would be for him. As Jason left, I leaned against Mark, exhausted by the emotional toll. "Do you think things will ever get back to normal?" "Maybe not the old normal, but we'll find a new normal, one where we can feel safe and focus on our family," Mark replied, pulling me close. The weeks leading up to the trial were tough. Every phone call seemed to bring more bad news or more strain, but through it all, we held on to each other, determined to get through this storm together for our family's sake and for the safety of our unborn child. The door shut softly behind Evelyn as she left, her last words hanging heavy in the air. "You two need to think about forgiveness at some point. She's still family." "I know, Mom, but it's hard to think about forgiveness when we're still dealing with the fallout," I said, understanding Evelyn's plea, but also knowing the scars would take time to heal. Mark responded, his voice tight with frustration. The rest of the evening was quiet, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the day. I found solace in the nursery, folding tiny clothes and arranging stuffed animals, trying to create a peaceful space amid the chaos. Mark joined me, his hands helping mine. "How are you holding up with all this?" he asked. "It's a lot, but focusing on this, our baby, it helps, makes it feel like there's still good ahead," I said, smoothing a blanket over the crib. A few days later, Liz dropped by with dinner and an ear ready to listen. As we sat at the kitchen table, her presence was a comforting reminder of the support we had. "How's Ryan doing now? Any better?" she asked. "He's recovering, thankfully. It was touch and go for a while. But he's getting stronger every day," I updated her, grateful for her concern. "And how are you managing this? Must be taking a toll on you and Mark," Liz pressed, her eyes full of worry. "It's tough. Mark's caught between his roles as a brother and a father, and I just want all this to be over so we can focus on being parents," I admitted, the weight of the situation momentarily overwhelming. The trial date approached quickly, and with it a flurry of media interest. Cameras and reporters clustered around the courthouse on the day, their microphones thrust forward seeking a sound bite. "Can you tell us how you feel about your sister-in-law's trial today?" one of the reporters shouted as we navigated through the crowd. "No comment," Mark stated firmly, guiding me protectively past the flashing cameras. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. Kayla sat with her lawyer, her eyes occasionally darting in our direction, but mostly staring down at her hands. The proceedings were a blur of legal jargon and testimonies, each word adding to the surreal nature of the situation. During a recess, Mark leaned close, his voice a low murmur. "No matter what happens, we have to stay strong for our family, for our daughter." The verdict came sooner than expected, guilty. The judge's voice was firm, the sentence severe given the premeditated nature of Kayla's actions. As the gavel fell, a chapter closed on the darkest part of our lives. But the echo of its impact lingered. Leaving the courthouse, the air felt different, freer, yet still tinged with the sadness of what had transpired. "It's over," Mark whispered, squeezing my hand. "Yes, but it's also a beginning," I replied, my hand resting on my belly, feeling the gentle kick of our baby, a reminder of the life we were about to welcome. The weeks that followed were a mix of preparation and reflection. We spent time with friends and family, all of whom were a constant source of strength. The nursery was finished, the walls painted in soft pastels, a stark contrast to the dark days we just endured. One evening, as Mark and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, he broke the comfortable silence. "I'm sorry you had to go through all this, especially now." "I know, but we went through it together. That's what matters," I reassured him, my head resting against his shoulder. "And we'll keep going together," Mark promised, a vow filled not just with determination, but with hope. As the sun dipped below the horizon, its last light lingered, a symbol of the enduring light we'd found in each other. No matter the darkness, we had each other, and soon, our daughter, to brighten our days. "Look at her, Mark. She's perfect," I whispered, cradling Emma in my arms, the soft glow of the nursery nightlight painting shadows on the walls. "She really is just like her mom," Mark replied, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and relief, as he leaned over to adjust the tiny blanket. The door creaked slightly as Liz peeked in, a tray of homemade cookies in hand. "Room for one more?" Always I smiled, motioning her in. "But be warned, she's a heart stealer," Liz chuckled as she set down the tray. "I wouldn't expect anything less from the daughter of you two." As we settled into the cozy living room, the conversation turned reflective. "You know, this whole ordeal with Kayla made me realize how strong you guys are. Not everyone could handle that," Liz remarked. "It was tough, but it brought us closer together, and it taught us a lot about who we are and what we stand for," Mark added, taking a cookie from the tray. "And how to protect what's most important," I said, gazing down at Emma, who was now gently grasping my finger with her tiny hand. The room filled with the soft sounds of evening. A car passing by, the distant bark of a neighborhood dog. Liz leaned forward, her expression earnest. "So what's the plan now? I mean, how do you move forward from something like this?" "We focus on the positives, on rebuilding, and we make sure Emma grows up in a world where she feels safe and loved," Mark stated, his determination clear. "I can help with that. Aunt Liz has a lot of babysitting credits to offer," Liz joked, lightening the mood. Deal, I laughed, grateful for her presence and the normalcy it brought. As Emma yawned and settled deeper into my arms, Mark reached over to tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear. Despite everything, I feel hopeful. Like turning a new leaf, I set my gaze fixed on the peaceful face of our daughter. We've got a lot of good days ahead, just the three of us, Mark said, his voice a soft promise in the quiet room. And plenty of adventures. Emma's going to need stories of how her parents overcame the odds, how we didn't just survive but thrived, I mused, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. Exactly. And maybe one day we'll tell her this story about how her family stood strong together against all odds. Mark concluded, the last rays of the setting sun casting a warm glow through the window. As the night drew on, we continued to talk, plan, and dream, the challenges of the past slowly giving way to the hopes of the future. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet strength of my family, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we were ready to face it together.